Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Anita Bass podcast. My name is Anita Bass, your host, and today's episode is proudly brought to you by none other than Awake Tours, the greatest music festival, touring, travel company in the whole entire world. So today's episode is an amazing one, a fucking powerful episode, which I know will help many people. We're interviewing Jamie Ryder. I'll just read from his website. It says, I give you the tools to find your worth, speak your truth, detach from the past, ignite your potential and radically transform your life where you live with freedom, fulfillment and gratitude. One of the main things that Jamie focuses on that caught my attention is dealing with abusive relationships and narcissists. So basically this episode is a resource that I wish that I had a few years ago when going through something similar when I didn't even know something like this existed. So we're going to be focusing, on narcissist relationships, what it is, what it means, and how to get out safely, and what you may be feeling and what you may be going through, which you may not even know is a thing, yeah? Alrighty, guys. So as mentioned, we have Jamie on the phone. Jamie, how are you?
I am doing super well, thank you. How are you going?
Not too bad. So thank you again for coming on today. The purpose of this conversation, as mentioned in my introduction before I called you, is to bring light to what a narcissist is. So as somebody who personally went through this, I put up with so much because at the time I didn't know and I couldn't reference anything. I couldn't even understand that there were people out there like this. So today we're going to go into this a little bit just to act as a quick helpful guide to those who may be going through this and don't even know, like a very good resource for them that I wish I had.
Yeah, absolutely. So powerful to share this message. I think one of the biggest comments I get is I hadn't heard of narcissism, or I didn't know what a narcissist was, and I lived with one for 28 years.
That's mad.
It's crazy.
Well, that leads perfectly into my first question, which is, what is a narcissist?
Okay. A narcissist, there's a whole lot of definitions that we can find when we look at narcissism. One of the main criteria is, and the behavioural patterns of a narcissist, is that they actually lack empathy. Empathy is a main driver of everything else. So typically a narcissist, even though you won't know that they're insecure, are someone that is incredibly insecure, and they hide the insecurity by trying to extract affirmation, control from other people, particularly when they get in a relationship. They have a grandiose sense of self-importance to try and combat this insecurity. Yes. That they fantasize about their level of success, brilliance, perfectness. That they seek and need huge amounts of admiration.
Yes.
They're self-entitled and massively envious of other people and other people's skill sets and behaviours. And that's typically what they are.
That's awesome. And also, I think like some people would be listening to that and be like, oh, maybe that's me. I've felt these things. I feel this, I feel that. But there is also, or I feel in my experience in it, as you said, a lack of empathy and almost evil. I won't like just cloud them all as being like evil, but they're just non-care. They'll stop at nothing to get what they want, to fill their needs and desires, which you've all mentioned. Like they have no empathy, as you said. So people listening to that, they might be like, oh, maybe I have that. But the fact that you even have like the idea in your mind to like compartmentalize and think, is that me? You're not.
No, absolutely. And it's one of those things, in order to be a narcissist, typically there's, depending on the studies that you look at, there's in between 9 and 11 narcissistic character traits, right? Or behavioral patterns, those sorts of things. And in order to be a narcissist, you need to have 5 of them.
Yeah.
So if we look at, typically I run off the 9, and if you've got 5 of the 9, you can then become diagnosed as a narcissist. Mm-hmm. Now, a narcissist, if we look at the behavioral pattern of a narcissist, they are highly manipulative. Yeah. Right? They're emotionally cold. They'll gaslight you. And this is when we move into gaslighting, and we'll cover this later on, but when we move into gaslighting, we're talking about an intent shift.
Yeah.
They are very, very controlling. that they are prone to cheat and those sorts of things. And as I said, they lack empathy. And it's that lack of empathy, when we call them monsters and those sorts of things, it's the lack of empathy that enables them to go that distance. Because at the end of the day, you feel like you're in some sort of relationship, and it's an incredible relationship because most of it stems out of love bombing.
Yeah.
But the reality is they are also in relationship. However, you're a possession.
Crazy. Crazy. And that's, also why they're relationship hop, isn't it? From one to the next, anything to fill the void.
Absolutely.
All right. So what is some examples of narcissist behavior in a relationship sense?
Well, some of the examples of narcissistic behavior is going to be the level of control that they put over you. So I often look at narcissistic behavior like shock and awe. Yeah. So the first thing they do is they give you trust. Mm-hmm. And the reason that they give you trust is the quickest way to receive trust is to actually give it. Yeah. So they give you trust and then they love bomb you, mm-hmm. make you feel like the most special person in the world. So what this does is disarm you, right? I can't believe it. I've come across this person, and they are like, not only do I think that they're these things, they've convinced me that they are all these things too, and this is incredible, all right? So they then have you. Then behaviours start changing and manipulation starts. Yeah. So the true art of a narcissist is to manipulate you to the point where you will receive their evil as goodness.
Yeah. Mad. And
where you will actually beg for the scrap.
I'm laughing because you're just reminding me of my whole 2019. Like, if someone has been through this, I'm so glad I could talk about it now. Yeah, and you're just begging, and by the time it's done, you're just like, and even after everything they've done bad to you, abusive, and that you're there wanting their recognition still because they manipulated you in such a way to make you feel like they're the only answer while cheating and lying and blah, blah, blah.
100%. And another major thing that you're going to experience is projection.
Yeah.
So because of their insecurity, the type of things they're going to do is, where are you going? Who are you going with? Right? They're going to try and isolate you from friends and family. Yes. Because what do friends and family do? Well, you talk to them.
Tell you the truth.
And they're going to tell you, like, no, what happens in the relationship stays in the relationship. They're not going to want you to talk to other people. And then what they're going to want to do is separate you from those people.
Yes.
Because those people have a likelihood of building you up. And if they build you up, you will actually have self-worth. And if you have self-worth, you're not going to tolerate the abuse you'll receive. They're going to try and carve you off from anyone that can empower you. Yes. And they're going to play a series of games in doing that. So one, they're obviously your best friend, like she's terrible. And they're going to try and convince you that she's the worst person in the world. Mm-hmm. All right. Your parents are there to try and damage them and those sorts of things. And they're really going to try and separate you. But at the same time, many narcissists will use a tactic called narcissistic triangulation. So at the same time as carving you away from these evil people, they will be going to them. Yeah. And they'll be going to them, selling the seed of doubt in their mind about you and about your security levels. So when you eventually have the strength to come forward and start speaking your truth to your family and to your friends, they're sort of going, oh, yeah, he told us that you're crazy. You're like, no, he loves you so much. Yeah. And this is where the implementation of gaslighting starts coming in.
It's insane. Like the thing you said about isolation and projecting as well, that just resonated with me too. Because I remember like when stuff started getting out of hand at home for me, like so much had happened, like to the point I literally thought I was going crazy. And then I was like searching for evidence. And then he was like, you're only doing this because you're cheating on me, blah, blah, blah. And then like I spoke to someone for the first time, like my cousin. And it was like maybe 6 months or something since the first bad shit has happened. So I hadn't spoke to anyone. And he was like, why are you talking to them about us? Like you want to do that to our relationship. Like you want like them to now look at us. Like you don't talk to other people, you talk to me. Like, and I'm like, yeah, but I just feel like so much is going wrong. He's like, and you want her to like think badly of me. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to put me in a position now when we see her, she thinks this, and like just made me, I'm like,
100%.
Oh, that's true, isn't it? But really it was like so much shit had happened, like so much to the, like, I don't know, like getting STDs from him, like from being with other people, like breaking my stuff, like like I can't even probably put the cunt in jail. But so much bad stuff, and he'd be like, why would you like tell them, like speak to me? And then you'd go crazy. And the thing with projecting as well, just things that wouldn't even make sense to me, I was getting accused of. And after when I learned about projecting and they're pretty much dobbing themselves in for what they do, it made sense. Like even little things, I uploaded a story to Instagram once and then he was like, why did you put your location? Is that so people can find you so you can fuck them? And I'm like, what? And I was like, what do you mean? That's never crossed my mind. He's like, yeah, when you went to the beach, you put that on because people search location and then they find out where you are and then they inbox you and then you like meet up with them and have sex. And I was like, what? And then I found out through like him being on Tinder in my hometown that that's what he was doing. And I was like, that's where that thought came from. Like that didn't even cross my fucking mind.
Yeah, 100%. You see, a narcissist wants a beautiful, hot, sexy, attractive woman because when he walks down the street and you're on his arm, it's look at me.
Yeah.
Look what I have been able to attract. Look at the caliber of a guy, man I am to have a woman like this want me.
Yeah.
So he wants that. He recognizes that you have the qualities of an incredible person. You have the looks to turn heads. And he doesn't want you to know that you have these things. Yeah. So he's going to break you down in so many ways where you feel unattractive and you feel dirty and you question yourself. But at the same time, because he's so insecure, he knows everyone's going to see this in you. And that scares the shit out of him because if you were to think the way he was to think, well, then, it makes sense that I put a picture up there so I can bring people home and have fucking sex. Like, sure, that's why I said, have a look at the watermelon that I ate this morning. Of course, that means of course I want sex.
I know, it's mad, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Ending on that point where you just said like they normally target people who they think that would make them look good, but then when you're with them, they put you down in such a way that you're literally like a shell of a human with a backbone, and then that's when they're ready to leave you because they're looking at you like, look at you, you are a piece of shit, look at you, you're fucking nothing, and then it's easier for them to leave because you are nothing, and that's when you're left literally like needing therapy because you're like, what was this whirlwind I just went on over like 1 year, 2 years, 10 years? You have like, it's mad. They're like, oh, you are nothing. Look at you. Now I can leave. And it's like, oh. Alrighty. So what is gaslighting?
Gaslighting. Well, gaslighting it's typically one of the number one tools a narcissist use when it starts escalating, So gaslighting, the way in which I look at it is I go, the difference between a narcissist and a narcissist that utilizes the tool of gaslighting is a narcissist does 90% of what they do to build their own ego up. Yeah. Gaslighting is an intent shift. So gaslighting is specifically designed to tear you down.
Yeah.
So that is the biggest difference between narcissism and gaslighting. So gaslighting, it's in a form of emotional abuse and manipulation to make you question your beliefs and perceptions.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where this is part of the shock and awe.
Yeah.
So this is the part where they make you feel crazy. Because now, the art of making you question yourself, right? The art of making you constantly to feel like you have an urge to apologize.
Yes.
The things that you're going, hang on a minute, that didn't happen, I didn't say, all those sorts of things. They put you in a state where you believe that you can't do anything right.
Yeah, exactly. And that's always
right. They put you in like you are constantly nervous and anxious and worried. It breaks your confidence down. So with your break of confidence, with a break of self-worth, the art is they're actually attacking you at the level of self-trust.
Yeah. Because
when they can break your own self-trust with you, then you will lose respect in you. When you lose respect in you, you see less value. When you see less value, you have no worth.
Yeah.
Right? They have you constantly saying, am I too sensitive?
Yeah.
Right? Am I just being sensitive? Am I overreacting?
Yeah, and it's completely relevant. Like, you're not. Like, you're really not, and you're just questioning yourself. I remember, and it just feels like it just feels like you're like in a whirlwind, like you're just in a daze. I remember I was out like taking my nephew for Christmas lights because with my partner at the time, I was like, oh, we'll go to dinner. He's like, no, I don't want to go. So then I went and took my nephew to Christmas lights, and then I was there for like an hour, and he's like, what are you doing out? And I was like, well, I said I was going to go take him to watch Christmas lights. He's like, okay, and just leave me at home then, that's cool. And I was like, I literally asked you to come out. And he's like, no, whatever. And he's like, we'll come home then. And so I took my nephew home, and then like I went home, and then he's like, we'll go out to dinner then. We went to dinner. He just like looks at me and he's like, you're going to bring other boys here. And I was like, what? And he's like, you're going to bring other boys here and you're going to take them home. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, I can't be here with someone like you. You're a slut. And literally walked and just left me at the restaurant. And then I went home and then I was just like, what the fuck is going on? Because he just like, I asked him to come out. He wouldn't come out. I went to see my nephew. He made me come home. He took me to the restaurant. He left me at the restaurant. He walked home. And then he just came in and then he was like, comes into my room. He's like, you're going to be a good girl or a bad girl today? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you just a bit mean to me, so we're going to be good, we're going to be nice, and then just comes on the bed and like hugs me. And at that point I was like, am I going fucking clinically insane? And yeah, all those thoughts are going through my head, and I was like, did I just make up all that shit that happened, blah, blah, blah? Like, did he really leave me at the restaurant? I was like, was that my fault? And then, yeah, you just, I lost so much weight. Like, you just go crazy. And then you go speak to someone about that, and they're like, that's not normal. And you're like, but I think I did something wrong. And they're like, that's not the case.
Yeah, and the other art of it is to get you to a point where you actually feel somewhat embarrassed by the situation to actually come forward because you're like, you know, this sounds crazy, and you've lost the sense of self
completely, like a shell of a human who you used to be.
Yep.
Alrighty. So, what is love bombing and discarding?
So, love bombing. Love bombing is an interesting tool that they use where they literally try and overwhelm you with love. Mm-hmm. They'll overwhelm you with with the perception of love.
Yeah, true.
So they'll love bomb you.
Love.
It's no. So it's the things that they say, the things that they do, the behaviours towards you. But love bombing is actually a tool designed to set you up for manipulation. Yeah. It's to put you into a state of what you consider love. So when you trust someone, you get into a relationship, they're looking for commitment. Mm-hmm. They want you to commit to them because once you commit to them, you don't mess around.
Yep.
Then they can go to work. Mm-hmm. Then they can go to work to break everything down. You know, they're going to do things, you know, where that they love everything about you. I just can't see anything. I cannot believe you've come into my world. I've never met anyone as perfect as you. You are beautiful. God sent you to me.
Yeah, and obviously you think you found the one. You think this is like a movie. This is what they talk about.
Absolutely, and you are overwhelmed. Yeah. And, you know, they're looking for certain personality traits and characteristics within people, and they're not knowingly doing this. It's their own inner self that just seeks this out, that actually grabs you, and everything is there. Yeah. And this is what the love bombing is. So love bombing is not love, you know, hence the term bombing. So they're throwing all these things that you assimilate to love, all the things for you to break down all your defenses. Yeah. And then once you've done it, they can come in.
Exactly. Setting you up, how much better you are than their other partner, how much they've never found anyone like you, blah, 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 just whatever they heard on the movies to say.
Absolutely. And then all of a sudden, if your attention to them wanes a little bit, they'll get furious. Mm. And it's only a perception of your attention waning, not the reality. Yeah. They'll try and convince you, the love bombing stage, they'll try and convince you that you're soulmates. Mm. You were born to be together.
Red flag. Soulmate first week. You don't know me. Red flag.
It was fake. You understand me more than anyone has in my entire life.
Yeah. You don't know
right?
me.
And this is what it is. So that is what love bombing is. It's the prelude to set you up to receive the level of manipulation that's coming your way.
That's amazing.
But it's also the tool used during the process of shock and awe. So as you just explained before, narcissistic moved into gaslighting, jump on the bed, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, so you've been a bit of a naughty girl. And it's kind of like, what? Hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Right? You know, then gives you a hug. And you're like, what the frig is going on here?
Just
Like,
left me at the restaurant.
right? So it's a tool used to set you up, but it's a tool used in what, as I said before, shock and awe. So all of a sudden, there's an explosion. Then there's all this love. Then there's manipulation. Then there's love. There's an explosion. You're going, I never know which way to look. I don't know what way is up and what way is down.
Yeah.
Just as you're at snapping point, just as you're at the point where you go, I can't take anymore. All of a sudden there's this overwhelming, sense of love.
Yeah.
Because they're going, I'm losing this. I don't want to lose this. I need this. Bang, here comes the love. And it's not love, it's manipulation.
Yeah. So fake.
And the art is they keep lowering the bar.
Yes.
So what love was at the beginning, as you being everything, is now scraps. But they've groomed you at that point to receive scraps as love.
Yeah, and they're the only
because what you've done is you've lowered the bar, and you've gone, I can give more, I can accept less. And they leave you in a hope that they're going to change. So whenever that love bombing comes in, it triggers that hope of change and you jump on it.
It's like getting fed scraps.
It's sick.
It's so sick. It is. It's twisted. And so I guess that would lead into discarding. What is discarding?
It's literally as it sounds.
Yeah.
When we look at discarding, again, many a time it's used as a tool.
Yeah.
And we don't know if this is the final tool or not. Because effectively, as I said, because they don't have empathy, they're in a relationship with a possession. Mm-hmm. So as a possession, I can discard you like that. The new iPhone came out, I got the new one. I don't think about the old one.
Yeah. And they don't. And that's what's hard to hear because you're like, did they ever love me? Probably not.
Yep.
Just the next.
Yep. But it's at the same time, they'll also use discarding in times of ghosting through the relationship, mm-hmm. where they just disappear. Then come back from some horrific mess that they've left, where you have had every thought concerned about what's going on, what they think, all those sorts of things, and then come back and how did that end up my fault again?
Yeah. What did I do?
How did that end up? Hang on, didn't you? No, that wasn't what it was. That wasn't what it said. This is how you made me. You did this, and it was your behaviour that did this. And if you didn't behave that, I wouldn't have done that. And because I did do that, I thought it was best to give you some space.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, maybe that's the way it planned out.
And you're just like, hence, we're now layering love bombing, gaslighting, the standard narcissistic behaviour, right? Everything on top of gaslight all at once. Mm. And that's why people say, I feel so embarrassed, or how did I fall for this? I feel so stupid. And it's like, you are not stupid.
No, not at all. You're in a daze.
I have worked with leading people, like one of the major companies in the US has a division where they train their staff not to be manipulated.
That's amazing.
Right? Because obviously if they're manipulated, it's in the delivery world. Yeah. So they could then, be bribed and manipulated or tricked into taking on parcels and so forth around the world that are illegal. Yeah. And this woman trains people. She's a federal inspector in this organization, and she rings me up and she's like, I'm so embarrassed, Jamie. And I'm like, she's gone, I do this for a living nationally. I get paid fortunes to train it, and I've fallen for a narcissist.
Dun, dun, dun.
So you're looking, absolutely. So you go, many people that end up in relationship with narcissists, it's sad to say, but in either their upbringing or in previous relationships, they've been groomed for narcissism.
Yeah.
And that's what's really scary. So many people, you look back and you go, yeah, my mum was narcissistic, or my father was narcissistic, or my brother was narcissistic, or whatever it might be. Yeah. Or my first relationship was controlling and manipulative, and they'll call it narcissistic, whether the kid was narcissistic or not. Yeah. And they've actually been groomed, and sometimes with best intent, Yeah. So sometimes a parent will love their child so much and be so terrified of the outside world that they literally control every decision they make.
Yeah.
So it's with best intent that the child ends up groomed. A narcissist comes along and goes, "You're guilty."
Yeah.
I can work with that.
Yeah. And you tolerate it. You're the type of person.
Absolutely. So it's not just, it doesn't just come from neglectful parenting or abusive parenting.
Yeah. So true. Yeah, I remember, again, I always bring it back to me, but that's because it's the example I have. When my friends are just like, why don't you leave? Why don't you leave? And then they're like, you're making excuses. Like, it's easy, just pack up and leave. We can get into that part later. It's not easy just to pack up and leave. But, like, when I eventually went and saw, like, a psych about it, they're like, well, where's a time in your life where you've tolerated a relationship for the sake of, like, being safe and stuff like that? And then obviously went back to my dad, and it was like, whenever he would do, like, bad things or be, like, abusive and stuff, we'd be like, oh, he's doing this because I know that he's told me in his childhood his dad did this to him, and so he doesn't see it as bad to us. So, like, we're kind of lucky. So to stay safe in, like, my parent relationship, I will make the excuse that, oh, it's okay, and he's just doing this because of this. And so when it came to the adult relationship, it was like, oh, yeah, that is a bit fucked up, but he's just doing this because of this and the stories that he had told me. And it took me a while to realize that that was the reason why I was like, oh, it's okay. Oh, yeah, I understand. And being so, like, empathetic instead of saying, like, fuck off. And then it was, when my psych was just basically like, you're an adult now and you have, like, the option and permission to say fuck off and, like, leave. Like, you don't have to make this a safe environment. He's a bad person and you have to fuck off. Like, no shit. But, yeah, Absolutely. It was because I'd been, like, in such a pattern of, like, giving people excuses for why they are in the way that they are and feeling bad for leaving because they'd given me their sob story. And but it's just wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah, but we get groomed in that situation at multi levels. Mm. So we get groomed to submit our will to other people. But when we look above that, we look at it and go, yeah, but we're groomed not to speak up, because if we speak up even on the smallest thing, we're wrong. Yeah. If we speak up on the smallest thing, it became my fault. If we speak up on the smallest thing, I turn out somehow to be the bad person. So what we then get is laden with guilt. And what we get groomed is for our intuition, which is there to protect us. When our intuition speaks, we've been trained to recognize that as an emotion of guilt through the association of that level of manipulation.
That's beautiful. That's awesome.
And so it's multifaceted.
Yeah,
there's layers to it. So it's a type of thing where you go, I may have got through one layer, but when it's 2, 3, you go, multiple layers, so often we are taught to be loyal. Be loyal, right? And you look at it and you go, that's awesome. And I agree. And loyalty, so we've got to be loyal in good times and bad times. It's like, well, of course, but we need to understand what loyalty means, right? The first part of loyalty is the commitment to the truth. Yeah. But we ignore the truth, because if we actually receive the truth, we're going, well, hang on a minute, their behaviour doesn't warrant loyalty.
Yeah, when the words saying I love you are reflected in that behaviour.
Absolutely. Yeah. Loyalty is not just I stand by my loved ones as they beat the shit out of me.
Yeah.
That's not loyalty. That's acting without wisdom and discernment. Mm. Loyalty is to be discerning in what and who you are loyal to. I did a post the other day on TikTok where, a guy said, unfortunately, loyalty has an expiration date. And I said, what is unfortunate about that? And it's an interesting comment, because most people go, yeah, no, you're right. Loyalty should be there constantly. It's like, bullshit. It's like, well, I married the person. It's like, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
The person's a scumbag, and they don't deserve your loyalty.
Yeah.
You've got to learn to set, manage, and maintain your boundaries, because no one will do it for you.
Yeah.
And if their behaviour is at that level, then we need to act.
Yeah. But
when we've been groomed that we are wrong, we doubt ourselves, and then we don't have enough conviction to do it.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation. So everything you're talking about now, it's just, there are so many layers upon layers upon layers, and there'd be so many people living in their situation and be like, I'm unhappy, but my husband does this, but he does this because of this and this and this, and I don't like my kids, and I'm like this, and I'm a bad person. It's like, No, like, and they don't have the awareness because they can't, because I guess, again, they may not even be educated on what's going on and what a narcissist is. So, yeah, I'm so glad we're, like, picking this apart.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I was going to ask, what is trauma bonding?
Awesome follow-up. Awesome follow-up.
The most sick devil activity. What is trauma bonding?
Yeah, and effectively, so you become bonded. So it's also known as Stockholm Syndrome.
Yep.
So a trauma bond is just a really complex form of psychological connection, right? So it's a psychological connection with the person that has actually caused you physical, emotional, or sexual harm in a relationship. Yep. So you're literally bonding to your abuser, you know, just like that Stockholm case where the kidnappers, you know, when the people kidnapped were finally released, they had been groomed to the point where they had a desire to get back with these people.
Yeah.
Because, you know, what narcissism does is you're psychologically manipulated and abused to think that your oxygen, you know, your blood circulation comes from this person. Yeah. In fact, you're groomed that your worth and identity is somehow attached to them. I am nothing without them. No, you're actually everything, without them. Yeah. And in fact, you know, I've been married for 22 years. I've been with my wife for 25 years. But my wife is still her. Yeah. I am still me. We're two individual people. Yeah. Right? My wife's identity, which is actually the character that resides at the center core of her consciousness, comes from her. Not from me. Yeah. I can't take credit for that.
Yeah.
Right? But this is what they do. You know, a narcissist will have you convinced that you're their heir.
Yeah.
You're their life. You know, they will literally tell you point blank that you would be nothing without me. No one would want you.
They are the exact words. Yeah, yeah. Who would put up with this? I'm the only fucking one here. Look around. Who's here? No one. Yep. Oh, you're like, that's so true. Who would I have?
So absolutely.
And they've alienated you from everyone. Sorry, go.
Absolutely. No, 100% exactly what they're doing. Because they're causing an imbalance in power in the relationship.
Yeah.
They have the power. They've taken it from you. They've actually convinced you that not only should you not have power, you're not worthy of power, nor even if you had power, could you control it. So there's an imbalance of power. There's ongoing abuse. And then there's the shock and awe. There's the oscillation of it.
Yeah.
So it's the back and forth between warmth, love, and violence. Warmth, love, and abuse. Warmth, love, and hurt. Warmth, love, and manipulation.
Yeah, that gets you feigning for them to be the answer. And then you get a little 100%. Bit of love, and then you're just clutching. And that's where the trauma bonding comes. And then when you're down, you're like, the only person who can give me my fulfillment again is them. And they give it to you.
Absolutely. Yep. So it's when you start digging into things like belief systems and understanding where your belief systems come from, when trauma bonding really starts going, oh, is that what's going on? So belief systems come from two things, one being repetition, the other being dramatic emotional impact. So repetition, the narcissist is constantly telling you you're worth nothing and breaking you down and manipulating you and all the things that they want to do. So it's constantly you're being programmed while you're suffering trauma, the dramatic emotional impact, and that creates your belief system. So then you're now operating on a belief system that they've programmed into you. The problem is your belief, here's one for you, your belief system actually affects your perception, which is the way you regard and understand things. Yeah. Your perception affects and feeds your perspective, which is your point of view, the story that you tell yourself and what things mean. Your perspective feeds your prospective, which is the expectation of how things play out in the future, which then cycles back to your belief system and enforces it, and around we go. And it gets deeper and deeper and deeper and more ingrained, and this is how you end up trauma bonded.
It's crazy. They change your whole world of reality through a sick words.
Absolutely.
Have you believing that you're all this when you're really not? You're really not.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
So what would make someone become a narcissist? This is something which took me a while to understand, and sometimes I don't even, What makes someone become that, and or are you born like that?
Yeah. There's a lot of research around on this, and I've looked into it a fair bit. So what I'm gonna spit is my belief system on it.
No, there's no real answer. It's a tough one.
It's one of the. I think that it's a combination of things. Mm-hmm. So I think biologically that there are impactors there that can sort of create some of the preliminary stages of narcissism. Parenting styles that are either overprotective or neglectful will impact the way in which a narcissist goes. And then you've got, obviously, genetics and neurobiology. That's going to play a part of it. So I think it can come from a whole lot of aspects. Like you look at the lack of empathy and you go, were they born with a lack of empathy? Because some kids you can physically see that they can hurt another child and there's just nothing. So you look at that and you go, that might be one aspect. But as a consequence of that, based on their environment, how did they get to where they've got? Did they learn through the parenting styles, through their upbringing, that manipulation, coercion, blackmail actually gets them the results that they want? Yeah. You know, did they find out, did they grow up and they didn't receive certain things within the family home, go out into the school environment, become a bully and learn these tactics of control, actually play them. So, are they just insecure people that, again, are so hidden by the reality that they learn all of these techniques and tactics because they're not brilliant people? I've been working with a particular narcissist recently. Definitely not the sharpest tool in the shed. Right?
Yeah.
To the point where he's constantly trying to play me.
Yeah. You're like, this is my job, motherfucker.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's recently tried to gaslight me, do all these sorts of things as we're working through things. Right? Because at the end of the day, regardless of he can see the knowledge that I may have, he still thinks he's one up.
Yeah. Mad.
So I think, where does it come from? How does someone become a narcissist? I think it comes from a whole host of things, and none of them any good.
Yeah. You're like, good. Agreed.
Yeah.
And I think you kind of touched on this before anyway, but why does a narcissist choose us?
I reckon this is a brilliant question. And I do a lot of work in this space. At the end of the day, the narcissist wants to feel good about themselves.
Yeah.
So they're going to gravitate towards people that will make that happen. Mm-hmm. So what they're looking for is people pleasers or people pleasers. I actually separate the difference between people pleasers, and I actually call most people out as people appeasers, because there's a massive difference between pleasing and appeasing. So if my example of that is, if you had COVID, and you rang me up and said, or I rang you and said, I've got COVID, I'm sick and that, and I bring you around, a lasagna for dinner or something, that's pleasing to both parties, right? You submitting your will to mine is not people pleasing. That's people appeasing. And when we see that, we go, oh, shit, I do that. Right? So, yeah, I do get it. They look for loving people. Yeah. They look for compassionate people. They look for empathetic people. And they look for people that are heavily committed, because commitment is one of the keys that is going to keep you there. In addition to that, they're going to need you to be forgiving. Yeah. You need to be a forgiving person, a loyal person, a self-sacrificing person.
So the greatest person for a normal relationship to be in, and this
correct.
person targets you and ruins you.
Yeah, and you've got to have an accommodating boundary management style. Yeah. So it's one of those things. So they're looking for people where you can go, I can actually knock your self-worth. Yeah. Because if you have self-worth, I'm going to struggle.
Yeah, you would just leave straight away, but no, don't care about your story. Whereas you'd be like, all my boundaries.
I'm going to look for someone that I can, as a narcissist, they're going to look for people and go, I need someone that doesn't speak their truth, that doesn't represent themselves.
Yeah.
So if I give them a story and lace it with enough, shit that they're going to run with whatever I want, as opposed to going, I can see you're upset. I can see this hurts you. However, like, that's fucked up. You were in the wrong.
yeah, exactly. Like, I don't care.
Right?
Yeah.
So why do they choose us? It's because we are incredibly beautiful people that are loving, compassionate, empathetic, and committed. But we have a few areas that we need to grow in, and that is to manage our boundaries, to know our identity and know our self-worth.
Yeah. Because
if we're not rock solid, concrete in those things, we're easy to bump.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful and that's perfect. And that's, as I said, with mine, the end revelation, what it all kind of came through was, that number one, you were targeted because it was like seen in a way that they wanted to be associated with. But then number two, the reason why they stuck around is because the lack of self-worth and the boundaries that you didn't have or didn't even know that you could have, to the point where now, like, I've worked on it so much, if I even got in a position with someone in that sort of way, I'd be like, bruv, fuck off, like, literally go away, like, I don't need this. Whereas then there is not a single chance in hell those words would ever come out of my mouth. And it was like over a year. And even when I did leave, I still didn't even want to leave because I was so trauma bonded. But it was like, I just looked around at how hurt I'd like hurt my family. Not hurt, but they were just like, you are not the same person. And even my nephews, and I was so skinny, and I was like, I have to leave for the sake of these people will never get this person back. And then it was through that I eventually had to build self-worth. But and like, it's not a thing. But now it'd be like, jog along.
Yeah, absolutely. Run. Jog along.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We have to. It's so key to manage our boundaries.
I didn't even know what a boundary was.
Most people don't.
Yeah.
Well, I run a program, and through the first start of the program for boundary management, it teaches people what they actually are.
You're allowed to. Yeah.
What is the purpose of them? Oh, where they sit. But it's something that we're not taught. This is what's so sad.
Yeah.
And what we are taught, more often than not, is so complicated that you can't actually apply it to your life.
Yeah.
Like, if I've got to have a boundary, okay, how many? Like, I deal with it, like, you look at one narcissistic relationship, you go, there's a million moving parts. You go, how do I navigate that? And I'm like, okay, well, ask yourself one question. Do you feel safe? Do you feel physically safe?
What's your body telling you?
Emotionally safe? Intellectually safe? Sexually safe? And when I say sexually safe, we're talking about the emotional, intellectual, and physical aspects of sexuality.
Yeah.
Do you feel safe of your money and possessions? Do you feel safe of your time? Do you feel safe to speak your truth? Do you feel safe to go wherever it is you want to go? Do the things that you want to do? Say the things that you want to say? And all of a sudden, it's like, I've just asked one question and far out, that's a lot of boundaries I just realised were smashed.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. As you were saying it, I was thinking about myself, like, no, like back then, not now. Yeah, and that's mad. Yeah. And then obviously, walking on eggshells. So that's crazy.
Yeah.
Just always thinking.
Yeah.
I think you've answered my next question anyway, which was, do you think that you can become a type of person that the narc doesn't choose, or do you just say no? So, I think you did go over that with that boundaries and self-worth.
Yeah, absolutely. I look at it and go, without doubt, there's three key parts to the answer of this question.
Yeah.
And you've got to combine them together. So I look at setting and managing boundaries as self-worth, intuition, and integrity in action.
Awesome.
So self-worth is the internal sense of being good enough and worthy of love and belonging from others. So we need that self-worth. Otherwise, we're not going to represent ourselves. We're not going to speak our truth because we're going to doubt whether the truth is even right.
Yeah.
Intuition is the way the subconscious mind communicates with the conscious mind. And it is the protector of your self-worth. But so often we've been groomed when we feel intuition to attune it to guilt. And we need to separate the two, because your intuition is there to protect you. Because typically at the end of it, you go, there's so many fucking red flags.
Yeah.
I knew it. That's your intuition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And then it's integrity. So integrity is the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, right? But you have to have integrity for you. So in other words, you have to represent you and take the advice for you that you would give to a loved one. So managing your boundaries, how do you become a person that a narc won't want? Well, first, know your worth. Start speaking your truth by listening to your intuition and having integrity for yourself. And a narc is going to go, oh, fuck, I met this chick, Anita. Fuck, she thinks she's the hottest thing ever. She's so fucking arrogant. I can't stand her. Right?
Yeah, true.
Because he's so insecure. He's not going to handle the fact that, oh, she put me in my box.
I respect that.
Right?
I was wrong.
So he's going to try and tear you down.
Yeah.
And that's what you want. You want to be a repellent. And they cannot name a space where a narcissist can live with self-worth, attuned to your intuition and you speaking your truth, but speaking your truth with peaceful confidence.
Yeah.
Because if we speak our truth with peaceful confidence, then they've got no fuel. Because what a narc wants to do, if you ever speak your truth, they want you to be either passive-aggressive, sarcastic, smart-ass, right, where they can hit you for that, or use the aggression that they use because you finally snap, right, in reactive abuse, and then blame you for that. So they poke you in the chest. They poke you in the chest. They poke you in the chest. They poke you in the chest, and then you hit their hand away and say, don't hit me. And they go, look, you hit me. Yeah. And because you're groomed, guess who feels guilty?
Yeah. I remember I got that once. It was like after so long, and I just snapped. I just snapped, and I slammed the door and was just screaming. He's like, he just comes in the room like, we'll get you help. It's okay. And I remember just thinking in that moment, like, oh, maybe even more angry about it. Just like, is this real? But then at the time,
yeah. And that's the key.
Like, what do you
That's
mean?
the key. Sorry, go on.
No, that was it. Yeah. And then I spoke to my sister and and he was like, oh, I think you should speak to Anita. Like, she did something really bad today. She might need help. And luckily I had spoken to her every day, something that had gone wrong. I drove to her house. So luckily she was like, But yeah, even then she was like, if I hadn't have known the stuff you told me, I would have fully believed. Like, you came to me asking me to get you help. And I'm like, brother.
100%. So you look and you go, self-worth, intuition, integrity. What's the character trait that you've got to apply to it?
Yeah.
It's discernment.
Yeah.
It's using intuition to discover what is essential and true. It's detaching from the desire to rush your decisions to put you in a place where you can actually distinguish the difference between true and false, facts and assumptions, to enable you to then choose the best path forward.
Yeah. Amazing.
Now, a narcissist is going to run to the hills. And that's what we want.
That's exactly what we want. They're like, oh, none of this shit's going to work here. Do that much.
Yeah, 100%.
So now I'm just going to talk about sex for a little bit. Next question, because I feel like this is something someone involved may not even realise that is happening, which is that sex with a narc is normally a bonding thing to you, and you're like, oh, I'm finally getting attention, but is kind of basically a manipulation technique to them, / they could be doing it with other people as well, probably are. So it's been mentioned by many people that like, oh, the sex with a narcissist was so good, blah, blah, blah. But that's because, in my opinion, it's like the only time you're validated and you feel like they're there for you. So I feel like this could be a main reason why some people stay. They feel the passion, the love. They're just like, oh, this is what it was. This is what I remember from day one, but it's pure manipulation. And I feel like the narc's aware of that. It's like, as you're about to leave, they're going to do this. And you'll be like, oh, true. So what is your opinion on this?
Yeah, listen, I agree with you entirely. So the first thing in relation to sex with a narcissist is it's all about their pleasure. And some people misunderstand that. They go, oh, no, the sex was great. And it's like, that's what they want to hear.
Yeah.
And even if it wasn't, they're going to convince you that it was. Right? So they want to be the sexual king. Right? Depending on the level of abuse that they're going to.
Yeah.
Right? But if we're just talking straight narcissism here, they can get into sociopathic and psychopathic ways. And you do get sexual narcissism where it's purely around that without relationship, but they will actually lack intimacy, and it's actually a tool 100% for them. And there's so much manipulation in order to do it. And sex becomes your little reward. It's kind of, you've got to see it as, you know, you see the dog trainers, they get them to do something, and they give them that little reward. To a narcissist, that's what it is.
That's so sick.
and it's like, to anyone listening, I'm so sorry if I'm breaking your heart right now.
It's necessary.
But clarity is so important. But that's what it is. It's a tool.
Yep.
It's a tool to, I mean, A, they want it, of course, right? B, they want that acknowledgement of their grandiose ability in the bedroom. But they feel bloody entitled to it. They feel entitled to it. And many a time, the way in which they get it is to break you down. So they will get pleasure out of you submitting your world to them after they've degraded you, manipulated you, gaslit you, spun it round, then have sex with you. It's almost a...
Like, I can still do this after all that.
It's almost a form of sexual assault in my eyes. Because yes, it does come with consent. However, how did you get? Was it uncoerced consent? No. It's not uncoerced consent. It's manipulated. Manipulated consent is not consent. It's like, yeah, but I'm married. Or yes, but I'm in a relationship. But yes, I actually desired it. It's like, yes, you were manipulated to desire it. So I know I'm crossing kind of lines here.
No, but it is,
and challenging thought processes, but that's how I see it, because that's how it is.
You wouldn't have done it had you not been lied to. Like, so it wasn't your, You didn't have 100% information.
Yeah. And if you were dare to say that you didn't like the way that happened, or, you know, perhaps you could do this or something, they're going to gaslight you instantly on that.
Yeah.
Oh, you always liked that before, blah, 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 blah.
I'll go find someone else. Already fuck someone else.
Yeah, I can find someone else. Or listen, you're not very good at that. I'm trying to help you, otherwise I wouldn't finish.
Yeah.
Very common, right? Sick. And you're going, serious?
Yeah.
Right? But and that's why I say it with the disdain that I say it. And they're going to guilt trip you. They're going to accuse you of cheating. They're going to call you names. They're going to threaten to leave. You know, they're going to threaten to have sex with someone else. That's all manipulation and coercion.
Yeah. Crazy.
So 100% right. Yeah. You know, in your question, I couldn't agree more. To you, it's hope.
Yeah.
It's bonding. It's acknowledgement. It's, you know, connection. To them, it's ownership, entitlement, manipulation, and to rule over. Yeah. There's no, you know, you look at it and you go, there's no sort of worse crime than someone to actually violate your body.
Yeah.
And I see them as, and I see them as violating your mind, which to me is the step worse.
Yeah. Brutal. So for those, sorry, go.
Sorry if I've taken that to a black face.
No. It's very like it is true, because it's like, had you had all the information, would you have done this? It's like, no. Like if someone lies and manipulates you, get into the bed, like that's not an ideal character. Yeah. That's not morally correct. So it's like the fact that you're doing this and you think the experience is one thing, but they know in the back of their mind it's just like a little fucking bait on a hook to get you to stay around while they fuck around in the background. Like it's, you definitely have a point. Like, it's not dark. It's true. Yeah. They're dark.
you look at it and go, when you actually said yes to actually having that intimate experience, were you coming from a place of sitting at a 9 or 10 in connection with that person, or did you come from a negative 9 or 10?
Yeah.
Right? Because when you're going to give your body to another human in relationship, it's because you're sitting at the 9 and 10, not because you feel so fucking hopeless.
Yeah, exactly. And you just hope that they'll speak to you for another hour if you fuck them. Please.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You get up the next morning before them and you don't know what you're going to walk into. Am I walking into, and this is where people get confused between hope and expectation, because they're hoping that they're going to walk into, you know, the knight in shining armor and he's changed and he loves me and everything's good, but you've got full of anxiety because you really don't know. In fact, you almost do know what's walking through the door, and it's almost opposite to your hope.
Yeah.
But you don't know, and that's the shock and awe.
It's crazy.
Where are we going with this, Anita?
No, it's necessary. It's like, it's just, I love it because I really, as I said, when I went through it, I had no idea this existed, and I just thought that I turned into something with no spine. I lost so much weight. I was just not even, I was a shell of a human. And then when I started reading and I started joining like textbooks, Facebook groups and stuff like that, it kind of helped me to like detach emotionally from the person, because everything he had said and stuff, I could read in a group that other people had literally gone through, and sometimes word for word. So it's like I understood that this was a character being played and not the person that I thought that I was in love with. So it really helped me to be like, oh, fuck, this is fake. And then obviously that's hard to deal with. But So,
and here's one of the things I say to people in relation to that. You know, they go, I love him, I love him, I love him, I love him. And I say, do you mind if I challenge that? To which they want to stab me in the eye, right? And I'm like, just run with this. Are you in love with him? Or are you in love with the avatar of him that you've created in your mind that he is not and that he never will be?
Yeah, the idea of it. When was the last time he actually made you feel that way? So when my
Correct.
friends would say, I'd be like, it used to be good. And they're like, well, how long ago was it used to? And I'd be like, shut up.
Correct. Yeah. Does he, see, these are the questions. Does he make you feel safe, supported, accomplished, valued, free, evolved? And do you have alignment to purpose? And it's like, no. And as you just said, and fuck no.
Oh, God. And people, we're saying she, but it's he. And I mean, we're saying he as example because I use he, but it's he or she. Obviously, girls can be narcissists too.
Absolutely, 100%. 100%. And here's the kicker, because so many people say to me, Jamie, it's not just all men. It's like, I know. Why do you think I know so much about narcissism? I have suffered from it.
Yeah.
Right? And it was a female that I suffered from.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things, you know, I'm looking at this podcast, I'm talking to a woman that suffered from it, and it's just very apt to talk in that language. But yes, very important to mention, it goes both ways.
Yeah. So can a narcissist change for those who are thinking, I want to stick around, and is it worth staying for children?
No.
Good answer, done.
No. Can they change? Like 99.99% of the chance, no.
Yeah.
Can the 1 in a billion recognize it to a certain point and work your ass off for the rest of your life to work through certain things? Of course, there's always the exception to the rule. But don't think you're with that person, please.
Yeah.
Right? Don't. You know, I even see people on TikTok that are coming forward as the narcissist that has turned around, and I look at their stuff and I'm like, you fucking scumbag. Like, you are sucking everyone in. This is your new narcissism. This is your, like, you are, people, you're amazing, you're incredible to see. And I'm looking going, are you serious,
He's
people?
doing it now.
Look at the content. Look at what, you know, one guy comes up here, the worst words that were said, and then lists all this horrific stuff, and you're like, are you serious?
Yeah.
Right? This is narcissism in work. He's even saying, look at me, I've been diagnosed. And off they run, and you're like, that ain't a healed man.
Yeah.
Right? So then you look at it and you go, what about if we've got children? Because it's not that simple.
Yeah.
And it's like, right, so is it worth staying for children? No, it's not. Absolutely, 100% no.
No, it's
right.
not.
So I'm definite in my answer. Why? Because kids don't get ruined by separation.
Yeah.
Kids get ruined by living and experiencing bad behavior from bad relationships.
Yeah.
Right? Kids learn more and 1,000,000 times more from action than they ever will words.
Yeah. Agreed 100%.
So do not. You are teaching your children I look at it and go, you got a child, and they're seeing that, okay, mummy or daddy tolerates this sort of, this is a normal relationship. This is now what love is.
Yeah.
Oh, mummy tells me it's not, but then she does this. No, they're now going to, and this is, where does it come from? You look at it and you go, if you've experienced these sorts of things and attached those behavioural patterns to love, being mum and dad, you're going to go out into the world, you're going to see that behaviour, see it as the most closest form of love you've ever understood, and you go, how come why do I keep falling for a narcissist?
Yeah.
That's why.
It's your
so no,
love.
do not use the kids as the excuse. And I call it as an excuse deliberately because it's confronting.
Yeah.
Oh, no. This is consideration. It's like, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but you're really grappling with leaving.
Yeah.
And I understand the consideration, but if all of a sudden we go, no, don't use that because you're actually doing worse by the children by staying.
Definitely.
Yeah. And now we've got fuel for action. This isn't judgment; it's fuel for action.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
And speaking as someone who came from that, I can attest to that as well. My mum wouldn't leave my dad, but that's because of the church. And back then, she's like, oh, it's embarrassing, blah, blah, blah. And when we've spoken about it when she's older, she's like, I just didn't want you guys to not have a dad. And I was like, it would have been so much better had we not gone through that. Like, Dad lived in a caravan at the front of the house. You guys used to fight every day. Like, shit was hectic. We did not enjoy any of it. Like, I understand why you did what you did, but yes, speaking as someone who went through that, like, it's not, your kids will more than likely look at you when they get older and just be like, you're very strong for doing that. I understand now if a man like treats me that way, I get up and I walk away instead of making excuses for them and hanging around. And I know every case is different, but
and then you look at it, you go, case in point, you experienced it and then you got into a relationship with it.
Yeah, exactly. And then it was that, and it was so obvious. And then I was like, I would never be with someone like my dad. And then my psych was like, and you did. And I'm like, but why would I choose that? And then unfolding, it's like, well, it's so obvious, but so not obvious and so twisted. So twisted.
Yeah. 100%.
Oh, God. All right, 2 more questions.
Beautiful.
Alrighty. Well, you've kind of already semi-answered this one, but most narcs will jump from person to person, just filling up that void and never being found out. And, like, I've often seen this as well. A lot of narcs don't have, like, long-term friendships, or they even move around a lot or something like that, or they just always have a new girlfriend or boyfriend. So this can be quite hard for the victim after they've just been love-bombed and discarded and put down and then left with nothing. So do you personally think the narc ever loved the victim?
Yeah. So my answer to this is absolutely.
You reckon? Ooh.
Yeah. Yep. And I don't think you're expecting that.
No, I wouldn't. My answer wouldn't be the same, but let's talk to me.
Yeah. Beautiful. I just think they love in a different way. So what we recognize as love is very different to what they see as love. So I see narcissism as, a victim is actually their possession.
Yeah.
So they love you just like they love the flashy car.
Okay.
And this is why we go, did they love us? And it's like, well, when they get the new flashy car, do they love the new car? It's like, oh, yeah, they talk all about it. They tell everyone how awesome it is and what the fuel economy is, and it's got leather seats, and come and listen to the stereo, and they take it around to their mate's joint and go, let's go for a cruise, and look at me, look what I've got. It's a statement piece, and they love it. And that's how I see they love you.
I get that. Just a different love, not a love for your
Completely.
life goals and where you actually want to go.
Yep, nothing like what you and I see as love.
Yeah.
Look how successful I am to drive that car. I bet you wish you had a car like mine. This car makes me feel big and significant, powerful. And look at me, I'm a superhuman.
Yeah.
But no matter how much they like that car, when they trade it in for the new one, they discard the old one. See, that's not love as you and I know it. No. And that's why I say their love is that of a possession, not of a human. And that's why I say you're never in relationship with a narcissist. Hence why, what is the number one thing? Control.
Yeah.
There is no room for control in relationship.
True.
Right? But one of the biggest differences is with a car, they'll trade it in. See you later. With a human, once they've discarded it, they want to destroy it. Because even though the new one's exciting, the reality is the original one was always better. And they hate that. They hate that.
Yeah. It is crazy. And if somebody's going through getting discarded and stuff like that, I would say just when it gets to the point when you are discarded, they will more than likely go around and tell everyone that you're crazy or make up stories and shit like that just to make you look bad. And it's very hard not to want to set that straight with everyone, but it's a losing battle that you are fighting, and you just need to cut your losses, be so happy and proud of yourself that you actually left, because not a lot of people do, and just move on. Like if you're going to try and prove this, or it hurts because it'll be like someone who's actually like was your friend and now they think all this shit, you like put your hands up, let them think whatever the fuck they want. I have a new life now, thank God.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you get zero closure from a narcissist.
Oh, zero closure. And that's what you're waiting for, then to say sorry.
That's what you're waiting for. You're waiting for the words. This is what's interesting. You're waiting from the words from a compulsive, lying, manipulative, coercive, deceptive piece of shit to set you free.
Yeah.
No. Mm-hmm. There's nothing. Everything they say, like, you know when a narcissist is lying because their lips start moving. Right? As soon as their lips are moving, you're going, whatever they're, I don't know what you're going to say,
not true,
but I know it's self-serving. And the thing is, they might go, oh, gee, it's a nice sunny day. Don't believe it. Don't believe it. Go out and see it for yourself. Don't rely on a word they say. So there is zero closure from a narcissist.
Yeah, exactly. And don't go back.
Never,
it doesn't change.
No, well, it escalates, because the reality is when you go back into narcissism and you know you've come out of narcissism, what happens is you lose a little more trust in yourself. You lose a little bit more respect in yourself, and so do they.
And they care about you.
So you've actually you've broadened the gap.
Yeah.
And they start seeing you, instead of the new car, is I'm now getting back with the second-hand car. Because you're a possession. It's got nothing. Your worth was never determined by them. Yes. In fact, it was how amazing you are that scared the shit out of them, and that's why they had to break you down at the character level.
Amen. Ain't that the truth? No, it's so true.
It's so true.
Alrighty, so my final question to you is that leaving is the hardest thing, and people who haven't really experienced this will just say, oh, just leave. But there's a big difference between being in, say, and I'm not putting that down, but say an abusive relationship where, say, maybe someone gets you drunk and maybe hits you, that's very bad. But then also that manipulation and toxic element on top of that, it's not as easy as like, I'm going to leave, because you're so trauma bonded and so sick and twisted. So everyone thinks you're crazy for not leaving, and you just literally physically fucking cannot. So it's so hard. So what are some exit strategies, as our last question, and some help that they can get or give themselves in getting out? And this can include your services as well, because you are phenomenal.
Thank you so much. And I love the way, like, the sequence of this questioning is I can tell you now, best interview I've had on narcissism, and that's including the ones that I've run. So thank you. No, thank you. It's incredible. So the first thing I say when leaving any relationship, and you've already touched on it, you have to ask this question, are you safe?
Yeah.
That comes before anything else. So first we have to ascertain your safety. Now, if you are physically safe in all aspects of that statement, right, we can then go to plan B, right? But if you are not safe, then what we need to do is customize an exit strategy for you. Yeah. So we run it, we're less leaving, and even though narcissism is a form of domestic violence, we're looking at it much more from a domestic violence standpoint. Yeah. Even if they haven't yet turned to violence, if you fear violence, safety comes first. So we manage it that way, right? Now that's customized to each and every person depending on so many variables, right? Some people can do some things that other people can't do. So we look at that. But we also use plan B in relation to that. So if you're safe, we then look at it and go, all right, what do we do? Well, Couple of things. Do we leave immediately? Not necessarily. Now, this depends on your level of access to be able to leave. Access, not only do you have a place to leave to, do you have the finances to leave to, but are you in an emotional state where you can? Sometimes yes, if so, run. Sometimes no, in which case I say you're safe. Let's run you through, and anyone that suffered from narcissism, I run through my Phoenix program, which is an end-to-end solution to deal with this, to rebuild self-worth, to learn how to set, manage and maintain boundaries and all those sorts of things, detach from the traumas and move forward. But we have to build self-worth. So when you're in a state where you go, I've got nothing left, there's nothing. I'm a shadow of my former self. I don't know my identity. I can't leave. I'm at that state where I'm actually saying those, I can't, but I know I need to. It's like, well, park it. Or even when you're at the state where you go, I just don't know. It's like, park it. Let's start running you through the program. And as you gain new tools, as you start rebuilding your self-trust, self-respect and self-worth, as you start learning how to speak your truth and managing your boundaries, as you start detaching from some of these traumas, shifting your perspective in different things, your strength then is at the point where you will make a very clear decision. Yeah. And it's at that point then you can do whatever you choose. And 99% of the time people choose, I'm fucking gone. Yeah. Right? So that is the way. So I look at it as a tiered structure. First, make sure you're safe. If you're not safe, we have to customize a plan. You know, if you have the level of self-worth and you think you can deal with the exit, run, get the fuck out of there. If you're going, I just don't feel strong enough, or I'm at the position where I go, I know I'm in a narcissistic relationship, but should I leave? Shouldn't I leave? Park the decision, rebuild your self-worth, become so much more in tune to your intuition, it will empower you to then leave. And then we're at a place where we can create the strategy and you can get out safely.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. And yeah, no, that is so important. Getting the support, having people around you. As you said, reading forums, absolutely. Reading up on it to know that you're not alone. And yeah, I can't imagine people going through it alone with kids and stuff like that. Talk to people, even though you'll be alienated. Absolutely. They've made you not have friends. You don't have anyone around you. You haven't seen anyone in months. Literally just go speak to anyone, book anything. Yeah. Just talk to someone and they will tell you how batshit crazy your life has been and help you. Like, I remember even I went to like a breathwork course and then she's like, are you okay? And I was like, I explained it and she was like, you can stay here tonight. I don't want you going to your house. From what I hear, like this can turn violent. And I was like, oh, no, it's okay. It's all right. And like even her like saying, like reacting with that degree of like stay at my house, like a stranger, I was like, is it bad? Like, because I thought it was normal. Like, like talking to people.
It's horrific. But yeah, you're definitely not alone. That is for sure.
Yeah.
You are definitely not alone. And here's the kicker, right? Recognize the whole way through this interview, this podcast, we've said manipulation, coercion, manipulate. That's what it is. So you feel worthless? You're not, but you've been manipulated to believe that you are. You feel no one else would want you? No. Many people would want you, but you've been manipulated to believe that you're not desirable. You know, you've been manipulated to believe you're broken. You've been manipulated to believe that you can't. You've been manipulated to think that all these negative things, but recognize none of them are true. It's all manipulation. Yeah. And then you might say to yourself, but then why do I believe it? You go, because you've been manipulated. Yeah. It is manipulation. You are an incredible person. Here's one thing about character, and character drives everything that we do. Character can't be gifted. There is only one way to get character, and that is to earn it. Resilience and courage is something that you're going to need. And if you've been in a narcissistic relationship, resilience, how many times have you been pushed down and you got back up? How many times have you had to put on a brave face and you've done it? You've done a doctorate in resilience. You've got it. Courage is facing fear and shame and converting it to determination. Yeah. Have you faced fear and shame through this narcissistic relationship? Sadly, yes. You've done a doctorate in it. So you are actually, on top of being a beautiful, resilient, compassionate, loving, loyal, committed human being, you have resilience and courage, and you can do it.
Preach. What a great way to end a fire fucking interview.
Had some of that. And in true fashion, it would be a stay strong at the end of it.
Oh,
You're awesome.
No, you're awesome. Thank you so much for coming on today, and thank you for everything. Like I was hanging on to every single word that you were saying, and I really hope and know that if we can get this out to literally one person, even if they contact us back or ever let us know, like I really hope that this will help somebody, because it's something so intense and so disastrous and evil when you're going through it. But it's just, thank you so much.
Yeah. And thank you. Like the way in which you've set this up has been so significantly powerful. You know, I hope this get out. You know, do we want to save one person? To my mind, I just want to save one. And once I've saved one, I want to save one. And once I've saved one, I want to save one. You know, but can this get in front of 1 million people and actually change, you know, a massive group? I hope so, because the way you've set this up is just brilliant. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Awesome.
You are welcome.
All right. Goodbye, my dear.